Let's get to a couple things off the top here, shall we? And the first thing we're going to talk about off the top is this. Rob, I think it's fair to say we intellectually know that Harry Potter is one of the more popular movie franchises. We all intellectually know that.
Come on.
But I don't think even people like us who understand that realize just how big of a film franchise that it is. To highlight the point, now, of course, a number of theaters around the world, as they are starting to reopen, they're playing some legacy films, including Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, which has been playing in China. Well, guess what? The film in its opening weekend in China has made over $13.6 million, which for a re-release these days is big. But what is more significant is that represents enough money to make Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone the newest member of the $1 billion club. It has now joined the $1 billion club, and now the film franchise as a whole has made $7.74 billion. Rob, that is nearly averaging $1 billion per film. That is insane. I mean, we all know Harry Potter is big, but I think when a lot of us think about Harry Potter, we don't realize that it's that big. You know, the other interesting angle of this, Rob, is that, you know, when China was starting to reopen its theaters, we saw like the number one movie making $4 million. And then that grew to another weekend making $7 million. Now we've got a film opening and making almost $14 million. So this is why theaters needed to start opening before the new films came along, is they needed to start that ramp up process. So there's a lot of really interesting angles to this whole Harry Potter thing. Rob, you hear that Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone is the newest member of the $1 billion club, had that opening weekend, the almost $1 billion average that the films have. What are the first impressions that strike you?
How J.K. Rowling must be really hurting. Like, I feel sorry. She must be in some Oliver Twist poverty line somewhere. No. Look, first of all, when movies do well, I love that. And I love that even Harry Potter, a movie that obviously has been out, it's available on just about every form of home entertainment or streaming you can imagine, that people will still go to a movie theater and see it. And if this quarantine or this COVID-19 has taught us things, maybe re-releases of classic Hollywood or studio films are viable. I mean, we've seen things like 2001 get re-released for its 50th anniversary. But if people are going to actually go to movie theaters to see movies like this, maybe having 1 week only showings of movies like Harry Potter could be viable. And like, you know, I just bought this box set of Columbia movies in 4K. Wouldn't it be cool if like studios would maybe do like Columbia Pictures Presents for a month and they would release their most successful movies? Like, I would love to see Lawrence of Arabia in a movie theater again. And a lot of people haven't. And if people are going to see Harry Potter, who knows what they could do? I think this is kind of an interesting trend. And to see this happen to Harry Potter, a movie that, as we know, doesn't necessarily need more box office, but here we are, $13 million bucks. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think the final total was somewhere in the neighborhood of like 13.6 million for a re-release.
And that's in one country.
Yeah, one country and in the pandemic era. So I think that bodes well. You know, and we've seen things like tickets for Tenet have been going on sale, and apparently they've been selling very briskly around the world.
They're going to sell tickets. You can see it now earlier than it was going to be released in the United States, like 3 days early.
Well, not here.
Well, not here. I know, not in LA, but in other places in the United States. I'm like, why are we being played like that? Can't they have? Well, can't we sign like an insurance waiver and go to a special theater to take the risk? Like, I'll wear a hazmat suit, dude. I want to go to the Chinese theater on Hollywood Boulevard. I want to see this movie so damn bad I can taste it. There's a new taste in my mouth. It's called Tenet. It's in my mouth, John. It's before dinner, after dinner. I just taste Tenet in my mouth because I want it so bad, and I can't get it. Well, I'm so deprived.
Quick road trip to Nevada, man. We were talking about going to do that for New Mutants. Maybe we just shoot out there and see if we can see Tenet at the same time. I don't know.
Double feature. I would love that. How great would that be? What a great way to reinstigate movie going for us.
Yeah, it would be pretty cool. So the question here is, guys, what do you think about this Harry Potter thing? I think it's pretty fun. I mean, and there's a lot of different aspects to it. How much it makes opening weekend, how much it makes in the pandemic era, the fact that it's another film joining the $1 billion club, the fact that it boosts up the Harry Potter franchise again to nearly $1 billion per film average. A lot of different things to look at this. What's your first impression of it? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's talk about one more thing off the top. Nothing important, but I think it's rather funny. Now, look, it's no surprise here that one of my favorite people in all of Hollywood is Ryan Reynolds. Not just because the dude is like ridiculously talented, which he is. He's ridiculously talented. He can do drama, action, comedy, you name it. And he's one of the hottest guys going. We were actually just talking the other day, Rob, that the Forbes highest paid actors list just came out for 2019, 2020. And Ryan Reynolds ranks as number 2. Only behind Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as the highest paid actors in Hollywood. And it couldn't happen to a better Canadian kid. But here's the interesting thing. Did you guys know that despite the fact that he is only behind Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as far as salaries go as acting, apparently acting is Ryan Reynolds' only second highest paying job that he has. It's his side gig, Rob. It's his side hustle. Acting is just a side hustle. Because Ryan Reynolds' main thing, apparently, is being in the gin business. Now, we knew a couple years ago, Ryan Reynolds bought in, I think for like $10 million. Bought in, became a majority shareholder in Aviation Gin. And guess what? They just signed a deal to sell this thing for $600 million. $600 million. Now, apparently it's like 375 up front, and then the rest is kind of like incentive-based due on the performance of the thing. Ryan Reynolds is actually, they want him to still be involved, so apparently he sells a little side thing. Now, this is not the John Campea Show that talks about all the things going on in the world of gin, but I do find it kind of hilarious that we've got this dude here who is making this kind of money, and acting is not even his biggest gig now. He just made, being the second Rob, wrap your head around this. As the second highest paid actor in Hollywood, he just made 8 times as much with his gin deal. It all doesn't all go to him, and he's got to pay taxes and all that kind of stuff, but still, it is a staggering thing. This is a dude, because Rob, how often have we seen athletes, celebrities, actors, whatever, who used to make a lot of money and then find themselves in very perilous financial situations a little bit down the road? This is a good Canadian kid who has been very smart with his money. He's made investments with his money, and now acting is just his side hustle. I know, Rob, you texted me about this when you first saw this. What was your first impression on this?
I was like, is he ever going to act again? You know, I mean, and also, did you read not only and the initial check that's being written, the first payment is $330 million. I mean, that's the first payment. And over the next 10 years, if it performs, there's another 300 million or 250 million in the offing. But what I also loved, but in the same article, did you see at the end of the article, it said Ryan Reynolds has also expanded his business interests into other areas. Yes. Last month, he joined the board of directors of the Match Group, the parent company of Match.com and Tinder.
Yep.
So not only is he selling booze, but he's hooking you up on a date. So you can go on dates and then drink his booze and have presumably a really good time when you go home together and watch Deadpool and get busy celebrating International Women's Day after that. I would say Ryan Reynolds has covered the market on fun and frolic for all of us.
Can you imagine? Like, look, Tinder's already a big thing. Can you imagine the explosion of Tinder the moment they do an online ad with Ryan Reynolds just holding up his phone going, Tinder. The thing explodes.
Dude.
It'll completely explode.
I mean,
by the way, this isn't the first time that a well-known acting celebrity has made a crap ton of money based on their booze business. George Clooney, apparently with his buddy and his business partner, they sold to the same company that just bought Aviation for $1 billion. For $1 billion. But then again, look, everybody knows George Clooney ain't no dummy. I mean, so right. I mean that's not a big surprise, but it is kind of crazy seeing this. But can you imagine how big these dating apps would take off if, like, not just Ryan, but like Blake Lively, one of those beautiful women on the planet too, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are like, Tinder. It would just like blow up.
Oh, I mean, and can you imagine how funny their ads would be?
Oh, they'd be
Like
hilarious.
they could do ads like, I wonder, honey, if we created Tinder profiles, if we'd pick one another. And do something like that. I mean, it would be hilarious. The way they troll each other online. I mean, having them do a series of Tinder ads could be the funniest things ever.
Oh my God. Can you imagine if somehow Ryan Reynolds looped Hugh Jackman into this? And he did some of his own, like, trying to convince Hugh Jackman, come on, make a Tinder ad for me. Ryan, I'm married. No, come on, it'll be great. It would be like one of the funniest things that those two could do. Anyway, key here is smart people tend to get money and then make more money off of it. Anyway, guys, what do you think about this? Like a guy like Ryan Reynolds, second highest paid actor in the world, and it's only his second highest paying gig. What do you think about that? Jump in the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down and out of the way, let's now move on to our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by simply emailing us anytime or simply by going over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your topic or question featured here as a main topic on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's get on to main topic number 1, shall we? And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Jack Dries. And Jack Dries writes, I'm not a New Yorker, but I've read Andrew Cuomo, he's the governor of New York, recently reopened bowling alleys, museums, aquariums, and gyms, but there's no date on when cinemas should reopen. He recently talked about the risk of reopening them, but not about a time to reopen. Do you think cinemas in New York, the second largest market, will open up in time for Tenet this September? Probably not. After all, that is a main reason why cinema owners want to operate at this time. What are your thoughts? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, now listen, the era of the pandemic is, I mean, it's filled with hurdles. These are unprecedented times. Nobody alive today has really had to deal with these types of scenarios, and everybody's trying to figure it out as they go. New York, after one of the most densely populated places in the world, not the highest population, but one of the most densely populated, has been hit very hard by the COVID-19. And for the most part, I think the way the New York government has been trying to manage it has been pretty admirable. However, for those of us in the movie world, and that's what we deal with on this show, how things affect the movie world, it is rather interesting that we are seeing certain things open in New York while movie theaters are not. This comes to us from the folks at Deadline who write, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo Monday gave gyms a green light to reopen, which is odd, but on August 24th, following recent nods to bowling alleys, museums, and malls, but is still leaving movie theaters, which he called less essential and higher risk, in the dark. That's both literally and figuratively. Cuomo gave no indication of a reopening timetable for the key market, which is making theater owners increasingly hot under the collar. I am unsure where the governor is getting his information, said Joseph Masher, Chief Operating Officer of Bowtie Cinemas and President of the National Association of Theater Owners of New York. So, yeah, here we are. They're opening all these other things, not movie theaters. Now, let me say this. I kind of have the same thoughts on this as I do with the Ezra Miller, Hartley Sawyer situation. John, how are these situations remotely similar? Well, follow me here. Like, Hartley Sawyer, of course, the guy from the Flash TV show who they very publicly fired when they rediscovered 7 and 8-year-old tweets that he had put out. Yet, when Ezra Miller's caught on camera laying hands on a woman, they did nothing. They didn't even address it. I said at the time about that situation, what I still believe is like, look, if you want to keep Hartley Sawyer in the show and just address the issue, I'm cool with that. Like, it's 7-year-old tweets, whatever you want to address and keep him on the show, I'm cool with that. If you feel like it really violates what your network is about and you want to fire him, okay, I'm cool with that too. Whichever you want to keep him, cool. If you want to fire him, cool. You want to keep Ezra Miller after he puts his hands on the throat of a woman? Okay. If you want to fire him, okay. Where I became really concerned and disappointed in Warner Brothers over that was the inconsistency. That's the part to me. It's the inconsistency. Like, really, 7-year-old tweets, you fire, publicly humiliate, and put out these big public statements. Guy puts hands on the throat of a woman, you don't even address it and pretend like it never happened. I'm cool if you want to fire both of them. I'm cool if you want to keep both of them, but just show some consistency. That's kind of my feelings here with this. Now, look, I've said before, Rob, that I'm totally cool with any government official who even makes decisions that I may not necessarily agree with if the motivation of the government is to try to protect its people. I'm all for that. I get that. And if they feel like they want to keep everything closed right now, I may not love that, but I understand it. If they feel like they have the safety protocols in place to open everything right now, I may or may not agree with that, but I understand it. This notion, though, this inconsistency of saying, well, theaters are less essential and they're higher risk, which I'll address that in a second. So we got to keep them closed. Okay, but you open bowling alleys and you open gyms and you open malls. Malls I don't have such a big problem with. Again, I'm cool if you want to open the mall. I'm cool if you want to close the mall. And I do believe there's a difference between certain things. For example, Rob, you and I talking about grocery stores, very essential. That's got to be open.
Yeah.
You got to have the proper safety procedures. Is a grocery store more essential than a movie theater? Hell yes, it is. Is it more essential than a bowling alley or a gym? Hell yes, they are. Absolutely 100%. But to call a bowling alley more essential than a movie theater is preposterous. It's absolutely preposterous. Not to mention, to say that a bowling alley, or in particular, Rob, a gym, is less risk than a movie theater? Really? That's just inconsistent. Here, let's take a look at this for a second here. I specifically want to look at this risk thing for a moment. Let's look at this risk thing. Couple things to look at. Okay, are theaters higher risk than a gym? Well, let's look at a gym I love my gym, but let's look at that. A couple things that are very similar to each other. Number one, in a gym, everybody is constantly moving around. They're constantly moving around, rubbing shoulders, whatever. That's just constant motion in a gym. So everybody's always moving around and everybody's touching everything. Everybody's touching everything. That barbell you're about to pick up, 30 other people have picked up that barbell in the last half hour. Everybody's touching everything. On top of, everybody moving around touching everything, you also get the whole situation of everybody in that place is sweating profusely. They're sweating and then touching everything. And because everybody's exercising, everybody's also heavy breathing. Like gasping and panting and moving around and touching everything and sweating on everything and blah, 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 blah. So I'm not against the idea of opening a gym if you feel like you've got the proper safety procedures in place. Then I'm not against opening it. But it's laughable to me that you say a gym is less risk than a movie theater where essentially you're not breathing heavy, depending on the movie you're watching, am I right? You're not breathing heavy. You're not sweating profusely. You're not walking around touching everything. And other than coming into the theater, maybe standing in line in hopefully 6 feet apart for a concession and then sitting in your seat, you're not moving around constantly. To call a gym less risky than a theater is laughable. Again, you want to keep them both closed? That's cool. You want to open them back up? That's cool. To say that a theater is higher risk than a gym is absurd. It's absolutely absurd. Then let's talk about the whole thing about what's more essential. You want to open bowling alleys? I'm cool with that. If you're opening theaters, you want to keep them both closed? I'm cool with that. But to propose that a bowling alley is more essential than a movie theater, again, is preposterous. It's absolutely preposterous. Movie theaters are higher risk and less essential. Don't tell me that if you're going to open gyms and bowling alleys. If you want to keep them all closed, I have no problem with that, because then you're being consistent. You want to open them all up because you feel comfortable that you have the safety procedures in place to keep everybody relatively safe. Okay, I'm cool with that. But to keep one thing closed, and again, I am clearly biased for movie theaters. Obviously, I'm not trying to deny that, but still, to say one is a higher risk and less essential than the other stuff you are opening, it's asinine, Rob. It's absolutely asinine. It makes no sense. And again, like the Hartley, sorry, Ezra Miller thing, you want to do one thing, I'm cool. You want to do the other thing, I'm cool with that too. Just be consistent. That's all we're asking for, some consistency. Anyway, Rob, you've seen this thing. Again, overall, I think New York has done a pretty good job of trying to take really hard steps and very extreme steps at times to try to control this thing as best they can. I'm not sitting here criticizing them overall, but if we're talking about this one issue, it makes no sense to me. Rob, you see this. What do you make of it?
Well, I mean, as you pointed out, I agree with you. In terms of gyms, also, they've talked about how COVID, the particles of virus can float on the air. When you're in the gym, you're breathing out heavily. Like, you're breathing deep. So whatever's inside of you is being pushed out into the air. And in addition to touching everything. And I'm just like, in a movie theater, unless you scream or you laugh, for the most part, you're breathing normally. You're socially distanced from people. You're not necessarily touching anything except the side of your chair. And I would think that movie theaters would be much safer than gymnasiums. And yet, Cuomo said that they were non-essential businesses. I mean, what about my personal well-being is very tied up in whether or not I can see Tenet. And I'm going to tell you, John, if I know that other people in the United States are able to go see Tenet, and me living in one of the great movie-going cities in the world, in Hollywood, and I can't see Christopher Nolan's latest, I'm going to get a little agitated. And I'm saying that me being agitated is going to make everyone in this house agitated, which in turn is going to make all the people they know agitated. So I would think that movie theaters are indeed essential. So they should open them up, damn it.
And look, and listen, I cannot emphasize this enough too, because I already can see that there are going to be people saying, "Oh, John," all I'm saying is, I'm cool if they keep everything closed. If they feel that their state is in a certain situation right now, the state of affairs requires them to keep everything closed right now, I'm cool with that. Other than doctor's offices, grocery stores. I get it, because those things are more essential. Again, it's just the inconsistency that makes me go, wait a minute. Like, is Sony paying you guys off to try to keep theaters closed so they can keep strong-arming AMC? I mean, or Universal, whatever. I mean, that's just the part that bothers me as a movie fan. That's just the part that bothers me as a movie fan. Like where you and I live right now, Rob, things like gyms and stuff like that are still closed. So I get it. Like, okay, you're saying you think the risk is still too high in our state. Yeah, I wish my movie theater was open. But hey, if you're going to keep gyms closed and you're keeping all these other things closed too, I understand it. There's at least some consistency. So I don't know. The question for you guys is this. What do you think about this whole situation going on here with that? As a matter of fact, I decided to make that the topic of today's question of the day because I really wanted to hear what you guys had to say about this. And so let's go over and take a look at that right now. So the question of the day that we put up on the community tab on our YouTube channel, guys, by the way, guys, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel right now so you'll also be notified of the things we put up in the community tab. But I asked you guys this. And about 4,000 of you guys have already voted, and I just put this up like just before the show started. The governor of New York is keeping movie theaters closed right now, despite allowing gyms, bowling alleys, and malls to reopen, saying that theaters are less essential and higher risk. Do you agree that theaters are less essential and higher risk than gyms and bowling alleys are? Right now, 18% of you are saying yes. Because of certain factors, we believe that theaters are actually less essential and maybe even higher risk than things like bowling alleys and gyms. 82% of you right now seem to agree with me and Rob that no, theaters are not less essential or higher risk than bowling alleys and gyms. So that's where that's at right now, 82% to 18%. Question is, guys, what do you think about that? Do you think one is clearly definedly higher than the other? Maybe you think they should all be kept on the same field. Maybe you think they should be treated unequally. I don't know. What do you guys think? Are there some points here that maybe we're not thinking about right now? Some other factors we're not taking into consideration? Jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Angel A. And Angel A writes, "Hey, John and crew. I just saw that Deadline is reporting. Of course, this was breaking news during yesterday's show, and we said we would talk about it more in depth today. Deadline is reporting that Paramount is officially in the process of developing a remake of the John Hughes classic Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, with Will Smith and Kevin Hart signed on for the leading roles. What are your thoughts on this? Are you a big fan of the original? Thanks, and keep bringing the mask-wearing filthy. All right, thanks a lot for that, sending that in, man. And yes, as I was mentioning on yesterday's show, just as we were going into the live questions, Rob cut in and mentioned that this was breaking news that Planes, Trains, and Automobiles was coming back. And it is indeed going to be starring Will Smith and Kevin Hart. This comes to us from the folks at Variety, who writes, the remake will be a modern update on the original, with Will Smith and Kevin Hart playing characters who are forced to team up to tackle travel obstacles to get home to their loved ones. Hart's Heartbeat Productions and Will Smith's Westbrook Studios are developing the remake. Aisha Carr from Brooklyn Nine-Nine is set to pen the screenplay, marking her feature writing debut. Hart and Smith will produce. So that comes to us with that, of course, a remake of the classic one starring Steve Martin and the good Canadian kid, John Candy, one of the greatest Canadian kids of all time. I'll tell you what, I like this. And I'll tell you why I like it. There's a couple of reasons. One, Will Smith is just one of the better actors in Hollywood today. Kevin Hart, listen, I keep saying, Rob, at some point, Kevin Hart's shtick is going to get boring to me, but it hasn't yet. I still see Kevin Hart doing his typical Kevin Hart thing, and it still makes me laugh hysterically. I know at some point his shtick is going to wear thin. For me, it hasn't yet. I'm just being honest. Right now, I still see him doing his Kevin Hart thing, and I love it. I still find it very, very entertaining. I would have thought that it would be Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Kevin Hart doing this, but you're putting in a world-class actor like a Will Smith into this. I'm fine with that. Also, the notion of remaking this. Rob, this film, the original Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is an old film at this point. It's an old film.
God, that's depressing to think about.
Yeah, it is an older film. And let's be honest, a lot of the modern audience hasn't probably even seen the original. But aside from that, I think this is a great film to try to retackle. I really do. I think, especially in a modern day, because travel today is different, but it also presents different challenges than maybe we would have had 25 years ago. So I think you get two personalities like a Will Smith and a Kevin Hart. I think you bring into a modern context. I think this is a pretty good move. Now, the one thing that makes me a little bit nervous is they don't have a screenplay yet, and they're going to a first-time writer. That's a little concerning, but no major red flag yet. It's just a little bit of a thing. It'll be interesting to see who they get to direct this thing. That'll be key as well. But overall, I kind of like this. I'm quite curious about this to see how it turns out. Rob, you've had about 24 hours to marinate on this. What do you think about Will Smith and Kevin Hart remaking Planes, Trains, and Automobiles?
Well, like you, I'm a huge fan. I like Kevin Hart's shtick, and I like Will Smith a great deal as a performer. I think, he's a terrific actor. I mean, I can't tell you. I love Hitch, the movie Hitch, because of Will Smith. I watched Hitch like 50 times. But let me ask you this. Who do you think's John Candy? I mean, the obvious answer I would think would be Kevin Hart would be John Candy.
Yeah.
But maybe they will flip it. Maybe one of the reasons that they agreed to do this movie is that Kevin Hart's really the straight man and Will Smith gets to be John Candy. Because I would like to see that.
They sort of tried to do that with Central Intelligence. With The Rock and Kevin Hart, right? Like, they sort of tried to do that. And while I like Central Intelligence, it didn't really work because Kevin Hart was still Kevin Hart. Even though they tried to make him more the serious one, they kind of also tried to do that with Pineapple Express, where you think James Franco would be the more straight-laced character, Seth Rogen would be the more pot-dealing whatever, but they flipped the script on that, and it worked. It worked. But I kind of think they'll lean into their strengths here. I think you'll see Will Smith as the Steve Martin character and Kevin Hart as the John Candy. But it would be interesting to see if they try to do it the other way around. It would be interesting. Rob, what I often hear from people when you get a remake of even a quasi-beloved property is this notion of it will besmirch or diminish the reputation of the original. I have personally never seen that happen, like not once. I've never seen that happen once. But, you know, do you think there's any danger of that happening here if this particular incarnation doesn't turn out well?
No. Look, as we all know, the original movie will always exist, and the original movie has become a perennial favorite for the holidays. So I don't think that you'll ever you can't do anything to diminish it. I think with these two guys, I honestly think that whatever Will Smith and Kevin Hart do together will be worth watching.
Right.
I do.
I agree. I think it could turn out to be really fun. So the question here for you guys is this. What do you think about the idea of Will Smith and Kevin Hart teaming up to do Planes, Trains, and Automobiles? I think it's got some potential to be really fun. It could also be a complete, utter disaster, but I think the potential is there to be quite fun. I'm looking forward to it. What about you guys? Jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to our third and final main topic today. And our third and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Colton M., who writes, "Hey, John. Well, they announced that the Obi-Wan series for Disney Plus will start shooting next month. Actually, they haven't announced that, but we'll get into that in a second. I did not think it would start shooting this early. Thoughts and thank you." All right, man. Thanks a lot for sending that in. And yes, what has happened let's be very, very clear here about this. They have not announced that they're going to start shooting Obi-Wan next week. When you use the term announced, you're applying that Disney itself or Lucasfilm itself has confirmed that this is what's happening. To the best of my knowledge right now, that is not the case. So let's be really clear that it has not been announced that they are moving. What we do have, though, are reports that they may be doing that. In particular and specifically from the website Making Star Wars, which, by the way, is not an official source, but when it comes to Star Wars stuff, they have a pretty good track record. So let's keep it with a grain of salt, but here's what they had to say over at Making Star Wars. They said, "Making Star Wars' Hollywood sources have informed me that Disney Plus's Star Wars Kenobi is filming at the Train Yard location next month. These sources have been perfect in the past, so I take their information as very solid. This lot in question is their location where The Mandalorian filmed its first 2 seasons' exterior shots. It is a safe assumption that the location will be used for exterior shooting on the Kenobi story too, with interiors at the Manhattan stage or Pinewood Studios. I also assume the location, which was used for Tatooine in The Mandalorian, will double for the desert planet here as well." Once again, this comes to us from the folks over at Making Star Wars. Rob, one of the things that stood out to me, there was no mention of, what's the name of the room they used to shoot Mandalorian again? They call it the
stagecraft.
They're stagecraft, but they call the room something in particular, and I can't remember what it's called. It's not
Awesome.
The tank. It's awesome. It is awesome. It is filled with awesome. At any rate, it is interesting to me that they didn't mention that in the story, because the fact is, we've heard Obi-Wan Kenobi himself, Ewan McGregor, he already talked about recently the fact that they plan to use that stagecraft, they plan to use that room fairly heavily for the Kenobi show as well. Remember, Rob, on the show, we talked about his comments on that. So it's interesting that there was no mention of that in here. Listen, if they actually can, and I'll wait for Disney or Lucasfilm to actually make an official announcement to make this official. But if they are moving ahead, I think it's a great sign because, Rob, we've been getting into this era lately of, to be honest with you, I've needed to adjust my expectations to Star Wars to I'll believe it when I see it. Because in the last 6 months, we've had so many reports and announcements, and we're doing this, and we're doing this, and we're doing this, and that's great. I'm not seeing anything happening. It was great. You said you're going to do this movie, you're going to do this project, and we got this, and we got that. I'm not seeing any movement on anything. Granted, we're living in exceptional times, but still. So if they actually do get the ball rolling again, and actually get Kenobi into production, I think that'll be a huge, huge deal. A huge deal. Because if they can actually start shooting next month, that theoretically means a Kenobi coming out in 2021 is not just possible, but very viable. Very viable. I mean, they completely shot post-production and had a season of Mandalorian ready to go in under a year. So if they can get shooting on this next month, a 2021 release date for a Kenobi series, totally and easily within the realm of possibility. And I think that would be a pretty good and positive thing. Rob, you've read this report. You've heard what they're saying. Number one, do you think they're actually going to go into production on this next month? Because we heard other people say that it might not actually be until 2021 that they start shooting. And if they do, how significant is that?
Well, it's interesting. I've been reading a lot about things going back into production, and I think the person who did it best so far is Tyler Perry. They just had a series. He has such a huge facility that they have barracks where they have the entire cast and crew live in these barracks. They cannot leave the studio lot. They bring people in, and they shot an entire season of a show at his facility. And God love that guy. I mean, his production facility, what a self-made entrepreneur he is. They did it right. But I do think that obviously with the stagecraft technology, and if they're going to have that facility, it's manageable. It's not like it's gigantic sound stages. I mean, it's a pretty contained place. And if people are quarantining weeks before and they're mindful and diligent, I think they can, especially because they don't need the same size crew that, say, a giant movie might need. They could pull it off. I mean, obviously it's going to be difficult, but we now have movies that are back up and running. They're dealing with very strict health. I mean, Bryce Dallas Howard was writing about how all of the precautions they were taking for Jurassic World. And obviously she's probably still involved with The Mandalorian. And I think if it can be done, and if they're careful, they could probably do that. I mean, people do eventually, how long? This could go on for years. And eventually, I mean, we have the technology to beat this if we're careful. And I think they can be. So maybe they will go back into production.
How significant do you think it would be, though, if they can? Like how, especially with all the things that have been going on with Lucasfilm and things that have been paused and delayed, is this a significant thing for them if they can get this Obi-Wan thing up and running right now?
I think it is. I mean, The Mandalorian has been the bright spot of Star Wars for the last couple of years. People are excited about it. People really liked it. Baby Yoda swept the planet. So I do think that an Obi-Wan series with Ewan McGregor in the role of Obi-Wan coming back is probably the most positive, most exciting thing for Star Wars fans around the world that I can possibly imagine. I mean, it's as legit as it gets. Bringing back Ewan McGregor in a series that Deborah Chow is directing, all 8 episodes, 6 or however many they're going to do. And she was one of the best directors on The Mandalorian. I just think it's a win-win for everybody. I think it's good for Lucasfilm. I think it's good for Disney Plus. I think it's good for and Star Wars fans around the world. I mean, getting The Mandalorian and Obi-Wan? Come on, dude. That is erection-inducing as far as I'm concerned.
And we should be getting word on a Mandalorian. We should be getting a Mandalorian trailer here any day now, as a matter of fact. Question is for you guys. What do you think about this report? Do you think they are actually going to go into production on this Kenobi thing next month? Maybe we'll have to wait till next year. What do you think about this? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With all of that stuff down and out of the way, we're now going to move into our live questions part of the show. A bunch of you guys have already been sending in questions. We're going to get here. But once again, you can still have time here to slip a couple in. Simply go to the tip link that's in the top of the description of this video or enter it manually, streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show. And of course, you're going to be supporting the show at the same time. And we all here, thank you very much for that. All right, guys. With that down, let's get into it here. We're going to think things started off here today with The Living Tribunal, who writes, "The Endgame reshoot scene where the Ancient One, to me, is the greatest evidence that Secret Wars is coming. The missing stones cause the multiverse to collapse, leading to Battle World, where new/old/dead characters team up for a cosmic threat over many movies." Look, anything in the world of Marvel is a possibility. Everything in Marvel is a possibility that they could do. But Rob, we have heard for 10 years now, fans pointing to something in one of the movies and saying, that's evidence that this is going to happen next. And that's evidence that that's going to happen next. And 99% of the time, that's not what turns out. Kevin Feige always throws a curveball and whatever. So I would say it is a fool's errand on our part, because I do it too. It is a fool's errand on our part to find any detail in a Marvel movie when it is always so loaded with references and with possible things that could be foreshadowings but never actually go anywhere or do anything with it, with a lot of wild things that they do. I think it's a fool's errand to point at anything in any one movie and say, that's proof that they're going to do this. It's possible, but I would fall well short of saying this is proof that we can take it to the bank that they're doing this. Rob, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, proof. What does that mean even? It's things change all the time. And I hate talking in absolutes like that. You just never really know.
All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next one today comes to us from Anne Rundee, who writes, does Ridley Scott's name mean nothing anymore? Was surprised to see he has an HBO Max show coming next month by a trailer drop last week, which no one seems to be talking about. It immediately became one of my biggest interests. Have you seen it and your thoughts? No, I can't even remember. I'll be honest with you. I can't even remember the name of the show. But I don't think it's that Ridley Scott, that his name doesn't mean anything anymore. His name certainly doesn't mean what it used to mean. I think that's fair to say. His name doesn't mean what it used to mean. But hey, he just did The Martian not that long ago. Let's not forget that. I think this is more of a testimony of these streaming services still trying to figure out how to market a lot of the stuff. Anyway, Rob, have you, first of all, do you remember the name of the show that Ridley Scott's working on? And have you seen the trailer for it? I have not.
It's a science fiction show, and it looks pretty cool. Apparently, there is two robots, androids, that are looking after a human colony. And then outside people come and threaten this colony. It looks really cool.
That's actually a pretty cool sounding project. Actually, I might be interested in that. All right, let's move on here. Bojax writes, after watching Project Power, I had two thoughts. It was fine for something I didn't have to go to the theater and pay for. And also, I'm looking forward to seeing Jamie Foxx as Spawn if that movie ever happens. Oh, I'll tell you what, listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that movie is never going to happen. For those of you who don't know, Todd McFarlane, we're getting on a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now, where Todd McFarlane came out and said, I'm going to make another live action Spawn movie and I'm going to direct it myself. Whew. What have you directed before, Todd? Nothing. Okay. And I remember, Rob, we talked about how I think Todd McFarlane's going to find that people are not going to be rushing to give him money for a project that somebody who's never directed anything is going to direct himself. And then Todd McFarlane has been writing about and posting about, lamenting the fact that, oh man, all these money people won't just let me do what I want to do. Well, yeah, no kidding. We all saw that coming. We all knew that was going to be the case. People don't want to just throw money at me for doing my thing. Anyway, he managed to get Jamie Foxx to commit that he would play the lead. Also, Jeremy Renner said he would be in it, but it has really stalled since then. I am not going to say that this is not going to happen. I'm just simply saying, as a fan right now, I'm at a place where I would be a little surprised if it does. I don't think this is actually going to materialize. I'm not saying it won't. I just kind of feel like at this point, I'll be surprised if it does. Rob, what are your thoughts on this right now?
Well, I would be surprised if it does too. The way things are going, I think so. I think I would be surprised just as surprised as you.
All right, let's see here. Next up, we've got Edward King, who writes, hey, John, for DC fandom and apart from the movie panels and announcements, are you excited for the Suicide Squad and Batman game reveals? I'm not really that excited about the Batman game stuff, to be honest with you. Listen, one of the things I said on the show yesterday was I think it's laughable and pathetic that they're doing 10-minute panels, like a Black Adam movie, a movie that people literally been waiting for 5 years. And You're doing this big DC fandom event, and you're going to have a panel there with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and it's going to be 10 minutes. I think it's pathetic. But that said, you bet your ass I'm going to be watching or monitoring DC fandom very closely, because I 100% believe we're going to get some big announcements. Big announcements that don't require panels, but big announcements. I think we're going to get some big news. So yeah, my eye is going to be very clearly trained on that 350 surprise panel, which I still think is going to be Henry Cavill related, but I don't know that, so we'll see. But yeah, I think they're going to drop a Suicide Squad trailer, a James Gunn Suicide Squad trailer. I think they're going to drop that. I think we're going to get some, I think we're going to get a new fresh look at the Batman. Matt Reeves is the Batman. That panel is the longest. The Batman panel is the longest at DC Fandom. It's actually 30 minutes, whereas most of them are 10 minutes, one or two are 15, and just two of them I think are 25. But the Batman one is 30 minutes. I think we're going to get a kind of teaser trailer. I think we're going to get some Henry Cavill announcements. I think we're going to get our first look at Suicide Squad. There's a lot of press release stuff that I'm very excited about August 22nd getting here. So yes, I will be paying a lot of attention to that Suicide Squad. Rob, what are you looking forward to the most about DC Fandom?
Well, trailers, look, I was not a fan of Suicide Squad, but I am very much eagerly awaiting James Gunn's Suicide Squad. So I'd love to see that trailer. Like you said, Batman is something I really want to see. You and I have both been singing the praises of Robert Pattinson since he was announced. And whatever their mystery reveal, maybe that's the thing I'm most interested to see is what is that mystery movie reveal, to see if you and I are proven right so we can gloat, which is always fun.
Probably wrong, but I think it'll be Henry Cavill.
But I, maybe even seeing anything to do with movies and television, I'd like to hear, maybe we'll learn something more about the upcoming Green Lantern series. I would like to know about that, So I'm excited, but like you, I really don't understand the length of these panels. I mean, you'd think that these panels would be a celebration of the talent and that you'd have a chance to really get to know these people through hour-long traditional comic convention panels. So I don't know. I mean, maybe the 10-minute panels are going to be so good, they're going to get so much bang for their buck that no one's going to care they're only 10 minutes because they're going to show us some tasty stuff. But I don't know. Maybe they won't do that either. But hope springs eternal.
No, I am very confident that they are going to drop huge stuff. From trailers and teasers and announcements. Again, nothing that requires DC Fandom to exist in order to be released. I mean, you don't have to do DC Fandom. You can just put out an announcement. Hey guys, on August 22nd, we at Warner Brothers are dropping some major stuff. We're going to drop 3 trailers and 5 announcements. Like, you don't need DC Fandom to do that. But I do believe they are going to give us that. I believe we're going to get huge news. I think we are going to get news that we're not even prepared for. Like, I'm prepared for a Henry Cavill is returning as Superman announcement. Yep. But I have a feeling we might get something, I don't know, something that you and I will look at each other and go, I had no idea they were going to do that. You know what I mean? Since they're clearly not putting any effort into the panels, which is pathetic, I got a feeling they already know they've got some home run balls with their announcements.
The hope, man. I want it to be like, I want to be blown away. I always feel that way though. I always want to be surprised and delighted, and that's how I go into these things. And I've been a DC fan my entire life, so I'm looking forward to all of this, really.
Yeah, I think we are going to get some rocket launchers of announcements and trailers, and I think we're going to get a lot. I really do. All right, next up, Jesse writes, John, your example of Henry Cavill Zoom calling in from a plane gave me a fun idea. Imagine if they made it seem like he's calling from a plane, then during the conversation they take some engine trouble and ask Henry if everything is okay. Cavill then says, give me a minute, stands up, pulls his shirt apart, revealing the Superman logo, and then it cuts to him on the ground in front of a plane to announce that the new Superman project. That would be awesome, but also just my nerd dream. Yeah, so what I was saying yesterday on the show about Henry Cavill Zoom calling is all these panels are just remotely done and pre-recorded. So it wouldn't have taken any hassle at all, even if Henry Cavill's busy on the set somewhere else, to just pull up his phone and hit Zoom and blah, blah, blah. But what if they use that to because remember, officially, Henry Cavill's not even supposed to be a part of DC Fandom, which I fully believe that he will be. But yes, Jesse, if they did pull something like that off, I think it would be hilarious. All right, James Argenta writes, with your theory, Superman is the mystery panel. Do you think they will announce a villain for the movie? If so, who do you think it will be? I think it will be Brainiac. I honestly don't think Brainiac will work very well as a movie villain. I know that's going to be very unpopular for me to say that, but I've seen a couple of attempts at Brainiac, and I just don't know that that works as a villain in a film. Here's what I think. I don't think they have a writer. I think there's a lot to be determined. I think, and this is a pure guess. I think we're going to get an announcement that Cavill is back as Superman, but it may not even be a Superman movie. They maybe have Cavill show up and say, I'm back as Superman, and they'll have him come face to face with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Right? Because Superman is going to be in Black Adam. Or have him come face to face with Ezra Miller. And since Henry is not a woman, he doesn't have to worry about Ezra grabbing him by the throat. So maybe he comes face to face with Ezra Miller, and it's like Flashpoint with Superman is going to be, right? Or it may be a standalone Superman movie. But if they do announce a standalone Superman movie, I think they'll save some of the announcements. Like, I don't know that they would even know who their villain would be yet. And I just don't think Brainiac would be the way to go. But they've tried it before. Tim Burton tried it, Rob. Rob, if they do announce Henry Cavill as a standalone Superman movie, do you think they'll do also announce who a villain of such a film would be?
I think they probably would, because, the way DC's been going, they announce things like Black Adam, like Flash, and it's like, yeah, it'd be nice to get a Flash movie, maybe in a decade or two. They never seem like they if they're going to announce a Superman movie, I would suspect they're going to announce it's a J.J. Abrams project, and I think that they already know what that's going to be, and it's going to be fast-tracked, and I think they will announce the villain. I mean, they might not, because J.J. Abrams and his mystery box gobbledygook is always it's always something that he's dealing with in the movies he makes. But I think that you can't just say, well, we're going to make a Superman movie. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. But are you really? Are you really? You say a lot of things over there, Warner Brothers, about what you're going to do. And I think that if they do make an announcement, it's going to be, they're going to be all sorted. They're going to know exactly what's going on. And it probably is going to go into production sooner than later.
See,
at least that's what I would think.
I feel more confident about it. And the reason I feel more confident about it is because I feel like, especially in the era of Walter Hamada, that they have learned from the terrible mistakes they've made in the past, right?
Yeah.
Because before, like, we all remember when they came out and said, hey, yeah, we're going to do Cyborg, and we're going to do 5 Flashes, and we're going to do this, and we're going to have a Green Lantern, we're going to blah, all this stuff, and none of it happened. It all got canceled.
You get a movie.
Yeah, we're doing all this stuff, guy. Woo! And none of it happened. And I think particularly one of the things Walter Hamada seems to have done since he kind of became the sheriff over there is he's reined a lot of things in. He approached a KISS method with, keep it simple, stupid. He's like, okay, guys, listen, we need to regroup here. Let's pull it in. Let's focus our individual movies as individual movies. Let's really just make them as good as we can. Let's stabilize this ship. And I think one of the main things that he's going to bring as a lesson learned from the past is, let's not announce shit unless we are 100% locked and ready to go. And once we are 100% locked in that, yes, we are going to do that Green Lantern project. Yes, we are going to do that whatever project, then and only then do we announce it. Because you're right, Rob, they've got a track record of really botching that stuff. But I believe those mistakes, I believe, and maybe I'm just being naive, I believe they have learned from those mistakes and they won't make that same mistake again. At least I hope not. I
think you're probably right about that.
All right, let's see what happens here. All right, next up, Chris Watkins writes, I love Predator 2 as well. Yeah, listen, there are people who really do appreciate the second Predator with Danny Glover.
Yeah.
There are people who appreciate the movie. It's a very different one. They took it into the city. I got to admit, I'm not the biggest fan of it myself. Rob, are you a big fan of Predator 2?
I have to say I am. And it's unfortunate because Predator 2 was cut. They cut like a half an hour out of it. And if there's ever a movie I think needs a restoration and they go back and they restore the original version of it, it's Predator 2. I'd love to see that. I really like Predator 2 a lot.
Okay, let's move on here. Okay, Tim Bartow. Is it the next one? Yes, Tim Bartow writes, I live in Kansas City. I used to visit there when I worked for AMC, and I occasionally run into Justin Gardner. He is my old boss. Every time I see him, I say, thank you for introducing the world to Campea. Well, yeah, so Justin Gardner was my old boss at AMC, who I treasured and valued very, very much. And he was a great guy to work with. He was the guy who originally recruited me to come and work for AMC. Now, to be fair, I had built a little bit of a thing with the movie blog before I went to AMC. But it was, I loved working with him. AMC at the end treated him very unfairly. And when he left the company, that was kind of the impetus for me going, no. And then ultimately I left the company as well. And I really didn't like the way they treated him at the end. But he was a great guy to work with. I don't think I would have lasted nearly as long at AMC as I did if it wasn't for him. First of all, there are some people in the higher ups who would have gotten rid of me a lot earlier if it wasn't for him. And I would have left a lot earlier if it wasn't for him. Like there were times that I would just vent to Justin and just go, the only effing reason I'm still in this effing place is because you're here and I want to work with you. And that's the only reason I'm still here. And all that kind of stuff. But I'm glad you get a chance to run into him. He is a super guy. And thank you for sharing that, man. All right, next up. We've got Dimension 20CH writes, hey, John, have you seen HBO Max's new show, Ted Lasso? Nope. I don't have HBO Max because they don't think people who use Roku are important. So if they don't think I'm important enough to be a customer, then I don't plan on giving them my money right now. Anyway, hey, John, have you seen HBO Max's new show, Ted Lasso? If not, I highly recommend it because I just find the main character to be such a good dang joy, hilarious and really good at pulling off the more stuff that's not comedic based. Again, I know nothing about it. And again, kind of honestly, my attitude right now is hey, if HBO Max doesn't think I'm important enough as a Roku user, or as a lot of other people are like Amazon Fire Stick, if you don't think we're important enough that you want us as customers, then I'm not going to go out of my way to give you my money. It's just that simple. If you don't think I'm important enough to be on the platform that I use, then I'm not going to be a customer. So I believe HBO Max will get on Roku and they will straighten this thing out with Amazon Fire Stick. And I believe this will all get worked out. I do. I just don't know how long it is. But until HBO Max says, yeah, all you people who use Roku, we think you're important. We're going to be on Roku. Until that happens, then they're not going to get my money. It's just that simple. All right. And Anonymous Viewer also writes, hey, John, the first episode of Lovecraft County was probably my favorite hour of television this year. So excited for the rest of the show. Hope you enjoy it, which is on regular HBO, which I do have because it's on Roku. Why HBO is on Roku and HBO Max isn't, I'm not really sure. Anyway, I was paying no attention to this show until two things happened. One, my wife told me that her friend and sorority sister, Jamie Chung, who is, of course, she played Blink in Fox's The Gifted, that X-Men spinoff show, was in it. So it's like, okay, I'm interested in that because I really like Jamie. I think she's a tremendous actress. And then I started hearing from people that they really, really like Lovecraft County. So I'm going to have to check it out. I've heard a lot of people talking about it. Rob, have you seen that yet? Have you checked that one out yet?
No, but I mean, I'm a horror fan and it sounds great. The trailers look great. I just haven't, I've got to get HBO Max.
Okay. Next up. Well, it's on regular HBO.
Well, we turned off HBO. When was the last time Watchmen was over, I think?
I see.
It's one of those things we turn it on and off occasionally.
Yep. I get it.
But I need to, I want HBO Max because regular HBO is part of that. So
right.
I just haven't done it.
Right. All right. Next up, a French fan writes, hello, John. Love your show. Thank you so much, French fan. I appreciate that. Fan. All right. Merci. You just talked about True Lies being your best action film. Did you ever see Le Total, the French movie of which True Lies is the American remake? And if yes, what did you think of it? I did not know. I've never even known. True Lies is my all-time favorite film. I never knew it was based on another property. Did you, Rob, or have you ever seen this film that they're talking about?
I have never seen it. I knew that True Lies was based on something else, but I didn't know what that was. So this is good information to have. Now I want to see the movie.
All right. Well, merci, mon ami. I appreciate you writing that in. All right. R.J. Walters writes, I should say. Hey, John, Mark Strong is Professor X as he plays the same part in this film called Anna. Thoughts? Trailer here, please. You must see this film. I've seen Anna. We've talked about Anna on the show. First of all, listen, I love Mark Strong. But he's bald. He should be Professor X. I still remember when they were talking about who's going to be Lex Luthor, and because Billy Zane had just played a role where he shaved his head. And do you remember this, Rob? And like everybody online is, Billy Zane should be Lex Luthor. Look at his bald head. I mean, I'm not. But listen, Mark Strong. I don't care whoever plays any role. I don't care. All I care about is when they cast somebody in a role. Do I think that actor or actress is a talented actor or actress? That's all I care about. Mark Strong is great. Put him in anything. Great. Put him in 1917. Put him as the villain in Shazam. Put him in The Kingsman. I don't care. He's great, so he's a great actor. So I'll take him in any role. Rob, what do you think?
I'm with you. I love Mark Strong. Was great in Green Lantern. I mean, he classes up the joint. I just like the way he looks, and I love his voice.
Oh, so do I. He's got a great. Oh, I remember him as the villain in Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr.
Oh, yeah.
He was so good. I just love that guy.
So all good.
Right. Man of Steel Rules writes, and twits him $20. Thank you so much, Man of Steel Rules, for supporting the show on that level. John, I have an idea on how to fix the DC fandom event. Simply have all the panels come on the John Campea Show, including the Suicide Squad cast. Then you and Rob get 2 glorious hours to do that thing you do so well. Oh, I would love that. Obviously, I would love that. But I just wish, again, I just don't understand why. And I point once again to that Comic-Con at Home panel that the boys did. The boys did an hour-long panel, and it was awesome. And just hearing all the cast talk about the different stories and the dynamics between them and stuff like that, and what they're looking forward to in season 2. And it was just really fun. And it truly felt, Rob, like it was for the fans. It felt like it was for the fans because they were giving us all this stuff. And I just don't know for the life of me, especially when all the stars can just do it from home and they can all just virtual call in, why it would be so easy, why they're not giving the fans that when it would be the easiest thing in the world to give fans that. I just don't understand it. Instead, it's really just a giant press event. They're going to make announcements that are going to be great. They're going to drop trailers, which is going to be great. I just don't buy you calling it a fan event when it's not really a fan event. It's simply a press PR event. That's all it is. It is a press PR event, not a fan event. And it could have been, with the way they set this up, it could have been an amazing fan event on top of everything else. But yeah, it is what it is, guys. It is what it is. Thanks for writing that in, Man of Steel Rules. All right, pardon me. Willow writes, I know that you prefer Angel over Buffy. I do, as a matter of fact. How did you feel about... Yeah, I do. I think Angel is a better show. That's just me. Sorry, slipped something, went down the wrong way. How did you feel about the way that the Angel series ended? I know that it was canceled abruptly, and while I don't mind cliffhangers, I found the finale to be a little unsatisfying. Yeah, so for those of you who don't remember, the Angel, they thought they were getting another season. And then, as they just had like 4 or 5 more episodes to shoot, they were suddenly told abruptly, oh, turns out you're not getting another season. This is it. And they were like, wait, what? And so they had to they had 5 episodes left that they still had to shoot to try to wrap up the entire series. Those last few episodes were not their best work. It is what it is. They suddenly had to wrap it all up. And the series ends with one of the best single lines ever that finished a series, with Angel holding a sword and going, I want to slay the dragon. I mean, that was a great final line. But the series ended on a cliffhanger. So you had Angel and his gang there, and this oncoming rush of hell monsters, and it's seemingly impossible battle they had to face. And that's where the show, and just him going, who you got? I want to slay the dragon. And then the series ends. So was it unsatisfying? Yes. I just don't know how they could have done much better given the circumstances. Rob, you remember that, right? Like, what was your kind of take on that?
No, I mean, look, I thought Angel was a show that got increasingly better as it went along. And I didn't dislike it, but I thought that, what they did with Buffy was a little bit more interesting, but Angel was a little bit more traditional, I thought, but still a very, very good show. And again, Angel added more cast members and things changed, and I really liked Angel, but I liked the way it ended. Because, I mean, what do you do? It seemed the idea that the battle is ongoing and it'll never be won and they've got to fight another day. I like that. I think that's the way to end a show like that, because the battle between good and evil is eternal.
All right, let's move on here. Next up, we got Russell Amador. Is it Russell Amador's next? Yes, Russell Amador writes, "Hey, John, it looks like Regal is finally opening as I've been getting notifications galore about the safety and upcoming movies coming out. Clearly, you're not in New York or California. This week, I may just make my way down there to see Unhinged. Is this a movie you drive to Vegas for or pass? I want to see Unhinged. That's most because Russell Crowe's my favorite actor. But I still think it looks like it's fun. I think it looks like it's fun. Would I drive 4 hours to go and watch Unhinged, though? No, probably not. I'll wait. New Mutants? I'll make the drive. I've been waiting years to see New Mutants. I've been waiting years for that. Tenet, a new Christopher Nolan film? I'll make that drive to go see that. Unhinged, I would probably wait, though. Even though Russell Crowe's my favorite actor, even though it does look like fun, no, I wouldn't make a 4-hour drive for it. No, I wouldn't. Rob, would you want to make that drive just to go down and see the new Russell Crowe film Unhinged?
Hell yeah! I think it'd be really fun. I think look, you know me, I love me some Maximus Decimus Meridius, and I think the movie looks great. Did you see the promo that he did, the online promo about the movie?
No, what did he do?
Oh, you know what? It's kind of like The Matrix. You just have to see it to understand. I don't want to ruin it for you, but it's one of the greatest movie promos I've ever seen.
Oh no, do explain it to me, please.
Russell Crowe movie promo. You just have to watch it because it'll put a big smile on your face. And it's just him talking. But it's what he says.
Okay, I will check that out because it's Russell Crowe, so I will go check that out. Okay, let's move on here. Where'd we go? Here we go. Nathan Diggs writes, I want the surprise to be Man of Steel 2, but if it's not Supes or Affect, you probably mean Batfleck, then I think it's definitely Batman related, and the character that is almost as pop as the Bat. And can you give a Batman type movie and even take the mantle of the Bat? Is Dick Grayson, aka Nightwing? No, I don't see that. Listen, I think within the small group that understands actual comics and the history there, I think Dick Grayson is clearly a key name. My all-time favorite scene, if you can call it that, Rob, my all-time favorite scene in a comic book ever is after the Nightfall series. After Bruce comes back as Batman, he vanquishes Azrael to take back the mantle of the Bat. And it's in the aftermath of that. And because remember, when he needed to pass on the mantle of the Bat after Bane broke his back, he went to Jean-Paul to become the new Batman and not Dick Grayson. He didn't go to Dick. And so it's all now come full circle. Bruce is now back as Batman, and he's talking in the Batcave with Dick Grayson, and everybody's happy that it's all worked out, but this is where they have it out. And Dick basically goes at him, and it's like, what the hell, man? You went outside of the family. Like, why did you go to Jean-Paul in the first place? Why don't you trust me? Why didn't you come to me and blah, blah, blah. And the whole issue is this conversation going back and forth, but one of the final panels in it, and I get choked up thinking about it, is Bruce puts his hand on Dick's shoulder and says, I suppose this is the way it is between fathers and sons. This is the way it is between fathers and sons. And I'll never forget that moment, reading that. And it's my favorite moment. But I just don't see that Dick Grayson, to the average movie fan and all that kind of stuff, I just don't see that being a big pop at all. For the average, that's not going to get everybody who are movie fans and not strongly tied into the comic books. I don't think that gets significant numbers of people as excited. I just don't. Rob, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think you're probably right about that. By the way, I did just send you the Russell Crowe promos. Apparently, he wrote them himself. He wrote them and filmed them himself. So they are, they're my favorite movie promos since Deadpool. They're pretty damn good.
All right. Okay, let's move on here. Next up, David Dilks writes, what do you think would have happened if Disney had canceled Rogue One and Solo movies and instead did Snoke Origin and Knights of Ren Origin movies to set up Star Wars 8 and 9 better? Would you have missed Vader and Maul too much to make the trade? I think that would have been ridiculous. I think that would have been a terrible move. Listen, there just seems to be this notion in movie fandom that everything needs to be set up with 5 movies. Every movie needs to be set up with 5 movies. And I don't think it would have... Look, no, I don't need a Snoke origin movie. I don't need it. I don't need a Knights of Ren origin movie. I don't need that. You don't need those things to make a good movie, right? When they made the original... Because I can just see it today. If they try to make a Star Wars movie today, I could just see so many movie fans going, you can't rush a Star Wars movie. You need an Obi-Wan origin movie first, and then you need a Luke growing up as a teenager on Tatooine first, and you need a Han Solo movie first, and you need how did this Empire come to power? We need that origin movie first. You can't just do Star Wars. Well, guess what? They did, and it worked. And the one I always go back to is, Guardians of the Galaxy. By today's logic, you can't do Guardians of the Galaxy. Yes, you can. You didn't need to do. You can't just come out of nowhere and do a team up movie. Well, guess what? They did. You didn't need a standalone Drax movie first. You didn't need a standalone Peter Quill movie first. You didn't need a standalone Gamora movie first. You didn't need a standalone Groot movie first. You didn't need all these standalone movies and then do a team up. No, if you know how to tell a story and you know how to make a movie, then you can just start with Guardians of the Galaxy there. We brought the whole team together. They're all together. And now we're going to tell our story. And that movie is effing fantastic. So, no, I think it would have been a massive mistake. Considering, especially since I think Rogue One is the second best of the Disney era Star Wars. I think Phantom Menace, or The Force Awakens, I should say. The Force Awakens is the best of the Disney era. I love that movie. And I love Rogue One. So, no, I don't think a Snoke origin movie or a Knights of I don't think those would have been necessary. I think it just would have made the situation worse, to be frank with you, especially since I thought the Solo movie was quite good and I love Rogue One. Rob, what do you make of that?
Well, look, Rogue One is a movie that to me gets better and better every time I watch it. And it's my favorite of the Disney movies that they've made. I find it very satisfying. I think the battle at the end is terrific. The fact that they allowed, it doesn't exactly end on the warmest of notes. All of our characters die. And it's audacious. And I think it really works very, very well. And I do like it better than Force Awakens. And it's not because it's a prequel to Star Wars. I think even if it wasn't, sure, the end ties into Star Wars, but even if it didn't directly, I think it would have been a great movie.
All right, next up here, Philadelphia Freedom writes, hey, John, strange question, but what are your most recommended films about loneliness and isolation? I don't know that I can think of many movies that are predicated on the themes of loneliness and isolation. Not many. You could look at maybe Taxi Driver, kind of in a way, I suppose. And I'm sure this isn't what you're talking about. I bring up this movie every once in a while, the Ryan Reynolds movie Buried, where the whole movie is just him in a box. The whole movie, from start to finish, nobody else is in the movie. It's just the whole movie is Ryan Reynolds buried in a box 5 feet underground. And that's where the whole movie takes place. It's crazy. Rob, can you think of any films off the top of your head that are like thematically about loneliness or isolation?
Oh, yes. And there's one that I think all of our audience should watch. And it is a Swedish science fiction film that came out a couple years ago called Aniara, Aniara. And it is basically the best movie ever made about isolation, loneliness, and the cosmic void looking into you. And I love it. But when I showed it to my girlfriend, she's like, "Why did you show this movie to me?" It's fantastic, and I love it, love it, love it. And Arrow put out a great Blu-ray of it.
All right, I hope that helps, Philadelphia Freedom. All right, next up, Casinema Reviews writes, I don't think the Mystery DC fandom panel is about any of the movies we suspect it will be about. I think Warner Brothers is finally going to answer our greatest question. I think they're going to finally tell us whether the sun... I know what this is. Whether the sunshine is warm, even in the winter, or not. Okay, so I don't know if you remember this, Rob. What this is a reference to is, let's go back a year and a half, maybe, when the reports came out that Henry Cavill was done as Superman. And everybody was asking Warner Brothers comment on this. Are you done with the Superman character? And are you done? Is Henry Cavill no longer going to play Superman? Warner Brothers put out the dumbest, stupidest statement ever. Their statement was, while we currently have no plans for another Superman movie, we love working with Henry Cavill. It was a non-answer. That wasn't, yes, we are going to work with him again. That wasn't, no, we're not going to work with him. It was a total non-answer. And I said, I remember saying at the time, so kudos to you, Casinema Reviews, for remembering this. I said, they might as well have just come out and said, the sunshine is warm, even in the winter. I said, you might as well have said that. It would have had as much meaning. So full kudos to Casinema Review for remembering that statement like a year and a half ago. Well done. All right, Il Postino, the Postman, writes, the Battle of Hoth is an allegory of Dunkirk. While I concede it was a tactical victory for the Empire, it was a strategic failure. Most of the rebels escaped, and instead of chasing them, Vader directed the entire Imperial fleet to pursue one lone spaceship. Well, yes and no. Because look, on the one hand, you can say, hey, if they had focused their efforts just on crushing the majority of the rebellion, there wouldn't have been a force big enough in Return of the Jedi to mount an assault on the second Death Star. You could make that argument. However, you can also make the argument that had Han Solo not escaped, had Luke not gotten away, had actually everything transpired as Vader planned in Empire Strikes Back to capture the Falcon and get Luke, then they win. I mean, that's just it. The Empire wins if that happens. But it didn't all go according to plan. So ultimately the Empire gets beaten. But I still think Vader's strategy was sound. We don't need to get all these guys. We just need to get these two specific things. We need to get Luke. We need to get the Falcon. And if we do, we win. But it just didn't work out. I know, Rob, how do you see that? Was it a strategic mistake? Did Vader make a tactical error in doing that?
Well, I mean, Vader's looking for Luke. You know, his desire is not necessarily to defeat the rebels anymore. He's looking for Luke. And in that sense, the actions that he took on Hoth eventually led to their confrontation. So Vader might have taken a turn, but Vader was able to achieve his goal ultimately. And they did rout the rebels. They destroyed the rebel enclave, the rebel base. So yeah, sure, the rebels took off and they can form again, but for the time being, they're in a complete state of disarray. And remember, I mean, really, they're in a state of disarray for a while. And so ultimately, I think Vader got what he wanted. He might be using a lot of men and materials, but it's not like they lost the Battle of Hoth. You know,
they just weren't able to finish them off, though.
No, they weren't. But that's not what Vader was looking. He was. That's it. The rebels are there, and I'm sure Skywalker is with them. That's what he cares about. And so it's like, all right, well, you know. And he's in hot pursuit of them the whole time. So, and then he gets what he wants by the end of the movie. He confronts Luke.
All right, next up. Bring back Henry Cavill writes, just finished playing Last of Us 2. Great game. I'm in shock. You were right. Hands down, the best game I've ever played. It's genius storytelling, and I can't stop thinking about it. There are two sides to every story, and us human beings need to learn to let things go. Again, I'm dumbfounded and in awe whenever I think about the story of The Last of Us 2. It is such advanced storytelling and what they do with the characters. And you're right. They're the one main takeaway I take from Last of Us 2 is it is a story about what pain will do to you. Even the best of people, what pain will do to you. But also, I think you're right that the other main theme there are two sides to every story. And like we always focus on the hero killing the 80 guys in the headquarters to get out. But then we don't stop to think about those 80 guys that were killed and what their friends and their families and what they are going to be thinking and what's going to be happening with them now. And how did that whole, from our point of view, from the hero's point of view, what they were doing was heroic. From those people's point of view, that makes that person, the hero of the movie, the devil. And what does that do? And that's something this story did that was so brilliant and so well done. And I'm glad you enjoyed it. Bring back Henry Cavill. I'm glad you enjoyed it. All right. Star Wars Rocks writes, hey, John and Rob, what if the surprise panel for the DC fandom is actually a Jamie Reyes lead Blue Beetle movie, or Jaime, I believe is the right pronunciation, lead Blue Beetle movie, because that's something we've never seen. You think that would be the big surprise? I just don't think enough people. That's something you have to educate the public to care about. I don't think you make it. I don't think that's
Plus,
your big
I don't
announcement.
think even if you're educated, look, I love Blue Beetle. I love the Ted Kord Blue Beetle and Booster Gold. I'd love to see in a blue and gold movie, but that's not exactly going to get the masses excited. I mean, as much as Jaime is a good version of Blue Beetle too, but who cares? This DC announcement is going to be an announcement that if I tell my mom, she'd be like, "Wow, that sounds good. I'd like to see that." And if my mom is excited about it, that's what I think they're going for. They want moms around the world to be excited for whatever the hell they're going to announce at this thing. It's got to be for everybody.
Yeah, I think if you want to do a Blue Beetle movie, which, again, I think you need to educate the public more on Blue Beetle. But if you do, you can announce that at DC Fandom. But you don't make the surprise. Ooh, what's this scheduled panel for that we're not telling you about? I don't see it being something on the level of Blue Beetle. That's got to be, it's like you said yesterday, Rob, that's got to be a showstopper kind of an event. Right? It's got to be the highest level of a showstopper kind of an announcement. Or it might not be. But
and remember, they're still riding this wave. When they had the Man of Steel watch party with Zack Snyder, they knew they were going to drop that Man of Snyder cut. They're following that up. So this has to be something that is, I think, at least on the magnitude. And look what happened at DC last week. Massive layoffs. Jim Lee is on an apology tour in the press. And it's DC is in a they took a hit, man. And I think this is going to be, not only are they're going to have the fandom event to make it great, they also are following up some really bad press that the company got. So what they want is something spectacular, something that everybody's going to come away with a big smile on their face and be excited about.
All right, I agree. Next up, James Argenta writes, before or after July 1st, 2023, Man of Steel 2 release date? Nope, Man of Steel came out 6/14/13. I don't even know. See, what I feel on a purely speculation basis, what I feel fairly confident about is that we are going to hear that Henry Cavill is returning as Superman. But what I'm not real confident about is that it's for a Man of Steel 2. It very well could be that he's going to appear as Superman in Black Adam, or that he's going to appear as Superman in Flashpoint, or something along those lines. So I'm going to say, I don't think by July 1st, 2023, one way or the other, I don't think we're going to have a Man of Steel 2 in theaters by that date. Rob, what do you think?
I don't think we are either. Nope.
All right. Yeah, I agree. Let's see. Next up, We've got Chris Hunt writes, probably won't make the movie better or worse, but the new Space Jam jersey looks like hot garbage. I don't care. I really don't care about Space Jam. I'll be honest. So, Rob, I don't know if you saw this, but the first image came out of LeBron James wearing the new Space Jam outfit. I didn't even look at it. I mean, I just don't care. LeBron James is my favorite basketball player currently. Not my all-time favorite basketball player. That's Larry Bird. But he's my current favorite basketball player. But I have no interest. I just don't have the interest or the nostalgia factor with the first Space Jam that a lot of people do. So I don't care. I haven't even seen it. Have you seen the new jersey?
I'm looking at it right now because I just looked it up.
Is it any good?
It's pretty cool. But I mean, it's cool. I like it. But it doesn't the Toon Squad jersey. It's neat. It's colorful and fun.
All right. Next up, let's move on here. Comes to us from Superman Steve, who writes, hey, John, if you would be so kind, I filmed a really fun 2-minute skit that I would absolutely love if you could watch and share with your audience. I really hope you find it as entertaining as I had fun doing it. I'll tell you what, I appreciate everybody who always does send me stuff like that, but I will tell you what I tell everybody, I can't do that. I do get inundated a lot with people, and I understand why. I get a lot of people who send me stuff that says, John, can you please watch this? Can you please read this? Can you please this? And then can you share it with people, blah, blah. And the problem is if I do it once, then I have to do it every time, or else I start to offend people. It's like, how come you shared that guy's stuff or watched that guy sing and you didn't share or watch mine? You know what I mean? So it's just in a position where I don't actually follow up and do that most of the time. And I'm just being honest. I could lie right now and say, oh yeah, I'll check that, but I don't want to lie. Honestly, I can't do that because I get so many emails every day from people saying, John, I wrote the script. Can you please take a look at it? John, I've got this thing I'm doing. Can you please promote it or tweet it? And it's like, if I just can't get caught in that. Well, Rob, do you find that as well? Like when you're doing your shows and everything too?
Yeah, I do. Sure. Yeah. Sometimes. Yeah. Maybe right. Not all the time.
So I just got, because again, I know I'm just going to find myself in a position where I'm going to be like, I'm going to get people super offended at me that I didn't share their thing when I shared somebody else's. And I just got to be very, really careful.
Yeah. I mean, that's why a lot of my show is reading people's letters. So I give people a platform, but the people that want specific requests or they want you to promote their stuff, it's hard to do that because then you'd spend everybody would be writing to you going, can you please send out this link or send out that link or do whatever. And that's why I don't do that, but I do entertain people's points of view. You can send me videos, you can write me letters, and I will share all of those.
All right. Let's move on here. Next up, Funny Movie Memory writes, in 2004, I took my age 14 sister to see a comedy based on its funny but tame previews. I clearly missed the from the creators of part because the movie was Team America World Police. Quickly realized my mistake, but we stayed, laughed so hard, and I still do to this day. Was that not rated R? Was Team America World Police not rated R? I can't remember, but I would think it would be rated R, especially with the puppet sex.
Yeah, I think maybe it was PG-13. I'm gonna look.
Might have been, but I think with that puppet sex stuff. But I don't be maybe because it was puppets. Maybe
it was released. It was released on video as an R-rated film because they added stuff in. So the rating is, let's see, rating.
You keep looking that up. I'll move on to the next question while you look that up. All right. The COVID-free Floridian, I love that name, writes, if you met a stranger who had never seen a movie but agreed to watch just one film to be absolutely sold on the magic and power of movies, what movie would you have that person watch and why? I love the show. Also, on behalf of Florida, sorry for our incompetence. Gosh, if I had to pick one movie that today would convince somebody of the pure magic and what movies can be and accomplish, I think I'd be tempted to go Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. I've made the argument before that I believe Lord of the Rings: Return of the King is the greatest achievement overall as an individual film. When I'm not saying it's the number one best film of all time, but when you consider all the disciplines that go into making a movie, screenplay, cinematography, art, set direction, the design of the film, the sound, the visual effects, when you take all that into account, a lot of movies won't have all of those things, but Lord of the Rings does, and it like won every Oscar that it got nominated for. It won 11 Academy Awards, and it swept in every single thing it was nominated for, it won. And for that reason, I would probably say today, if I was taking an audience member from today, I would probably recommend Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. Is the one I would go. Rob, do you have one? And did you find that rating, by the way?
I did. So check this out. At least 9 edits of the puppet love scene were shown to the MPAA before the board accepted it, and it had been toned down enough to qualify for an R rating.
Instead of an NC-17?
Yeah.
Wow.
9 edits.
So it was definitely rated R in theaters.
It was rated R.
Well, which movie would you recommend? If you had to show a movie to somebody to convince them of the beauty and magic of movies today, what movie would that be?
You know what? I would show them probably. When I say beauty of movies, I would. You know what? This is going to be off the wall, but the new edit of Terrence Malick's Tree of Life.
Really?
Yeah, because you said beauty. Now, in terms
the beauty
of
and magic of filmmaking, and like that would make somebody fall in love with the movies.
In terms of, I think I would probably show them like the Shawshank Redemption, because like you were saying about Return of the King. Return of the King is such a great example, but I don't know if I would go fantasy, because I would want people to relate to it. Like if there's no one had seen a movie, you're trying to convince some curmudgeon of the value of film, I would want to tell like a very human story where when it was over, you would be incredibly moved by it, and I think there might be some people that wouldn't buy. Like my grandfather did not dig fantasy or science fiction or horror, and he didn't particularly like movies very much. So I would, if it were him, and I would have to sit down, I would show him something more along the lines of a Tree of Life. But I think he would have warmed up to Shawshank Redemption. I think he could have understood that story, and it would have to be something, or Life is Beautiful or Cinema Paradiso, something like that.
Right. Okay, Rob, well, listen, we have hit the 11:30 mark. I know you got things you got to run and do, but in the meantime, where can people follow you and your adventures online?
Well, you can find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, and you can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM. Find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett, and, send me letters and videos.
Pleasure as always, my friend, and I will talk to you again later.
All right, sir.
Have a good one. All right, guys. With that down, we still got about 20 minutes here, so let's keep on going through your live questions. We're going to get things carried on here with Brandon Entwistle, who writes, "Greetings from New Zealand. The week is finally here, as this Friday I have tickets to see an advanced screening of Tenet. Very excited to see something fresh on the big screen. Have spent the past month catching all of Nolan's films at my local cinema." Well, first of all, Brendan, that's pretty awesome that you've had the chance you get to go and see any movies at all, because a lot of people still don't have theaters open near them. So I'm really envious of people who get to go to see movies, even the older classics, sometimes especially the older classics, in cinemas right now. So that's awesome. But the fact that you get to go see Tenet soon, that's great. I'm going to have to get my tickets pretty soon. Unfortunately, out of state, I'll have to make a road trip to go and watch them. But I'm very excited to do it, and I know you are too, man. So thanks for sharing that. All right, next up, we've got Preston the Kryptonian, who writes, "Hey, John, so I just got my Marvel mug yesterday. Nice, the same one you were drinking out of. And I noticed that Daredevil was on it, too. Hopefully he can eventually have a place in the MCU. Have a good one." I have very little doubt. There's Daredevil right there in mine, right there. I have very little doubt that we're going to see Daredevil in the MCU. It's just not going to be the Daredevil you saw on Netflix. That's the thing. I think there are still people out there holding out hope that we're going to see Charlie Cox's Daredevil in Netflix. You're not. I don't think Kevin Feige is going to want his creation as the Daredevil in there. And not to mention, I think that iteration of the character will still belong to Netflix. So there were rumors going around that Charlie Cox is going to be returning as Daredevil to the cinematic universe. Charlie Cox shot those rumors down. So I have no doubt we're going to see Daredevil. But I also have very little doubt that it's not going to be Charlie Cox. It's not going to be that Daredevil. We're going to get a new Daredevil at some point. It's going to be interesting to see what Kevin Feige does with that. All right, Batman Needs a Mask writes, greetings and salutations, John. In my opinion, that to-be-announced panel at DC Fandom will be a new Warner Brothers Games Montreal Batman game based on Court of Owls. I don't know if you saw their cryptic tweak since you haven't been on Twitter much. No, see, I don't believe that's the case, because if you look at the schedule, they have a panel set up for the Warner Brothers Games Montreal thing. They've already got a panel for that. So if they're going to do an announcement regarding that, it'll be at that panel. I don't think you set up a big surprise panel and then do a game announcement. I just don't think you do that, especially since, WB Games Montreal, they already have a panel already set up for earlier in the day. So if they're going to do an announcement about that, I believe that's where it's going to happen. I mean, anything's possible, but that's why I'm going to be leaning that way on that. All right, Mischievous Gremlin writes and sends in a $20 tip. Thank you so much, man, for supporting the channel on that level, dude. All right, hey, John. Over the years, I've seen websites out there that get a whole bunch of traffic for some type of event, and they end the website doesn't have the servers to handle it, and it ends up crashing. Is there any fear of that happening with DC Fandom? I don't think so. Like, it's not like DC Fandom is going to be really cool with all the announcements and trailers, but it's not going to be like when the Phantom Menace tickets went on sale, or when Endgame's tickets went on sale. You know what I mean? It's not going to be like that. Today's infrastructure is much better. Like, I even remember back in my movie blog days, I had a article of mine go to #1 on Dig. Dig was the big thing before Reddit was. But I had an article of mine go to the #1 position on Dig, and yeah, my server crashed because I only had a certain amount of, but I'm not a big corporation. I only had a certain, plan with my web hosting server that it could only handle so much traffic. If I was a bigger company, I could pay to have more bandwidth and stuff like that. Something like that for DC is not going to be an issue. And again, if they can now today handle things like tickets going on sale for Endgame, tickets going on sale for a Star Wars movie, all that kind of stuff, then DC Fandom's not going to be a problem. It's not going to be a problem at all. If it was 10 years ago, maybe. But they will have the server capacity for it, unless they woefully underprepare, but that shouldn't be a problem. So I think they'll be fine. All right, next up. Let's see. Casey McNatt writes, 1 of 2. Hey, John, hope your day is going well. It is going well so far, thank you. I know it's a long way away, especially since we haven't gotten the Batman yet. However, with talks of Matt Reeves becoming a Batman trilogy, is there any new villains you want to see them touch on? Not really, because, listen, what I have learned is that it doesn't matter what villain you use. It really doesn't. You could take a terrible, laughable kind of villain. We've seen movies that have taken like B-level villains and made them amazing. We've also seen movies take A-list villains, and that hasn't helped anything. I always go back to look at the Fantastic Four. Doctor Doom is one of the greatest villains in comic book history. Has having Doctor Doom in the movie made those movies any better? Nope. It all comes down to execution. So I really don't care what villain they use. All I care about is whatever villain you get, does it fit the story, and do you write the villain well? And you can get Clockmaster, whatever, or you could get KG Beast, or you could get Bane, or it doesn't really matter. If you write the character well, it doesn't matter if it's not a great comic book villain. If you write him well in the movie, he's going to be a great movie villain. It doesn't matter if you get the best villain from the comics in the movie. If you don't write it well, Fantastic Four, then it's not going to matter. It's not going to matter. So I'm kind of the position of, I mean, don't get me wrong. If they announce my favorite comic book villain, of course that'll get me excited. But as I sit back and look forward, do I really care what villain they put in or not? No. Because if they announce the worst villain in comic history, the movie could still be awesome if they write it well. If they announce the best villain in comic history, the movie could suck because they may not write. All that matters is, do you write a great villain? That's all that counts. It's all that matters. At least that's the way I've come to kind of view it. So no, if if the first Batman movie is great, and there's no reason to believe it won't be. Matt Reeves is a great director. If the first Batman movie is great, then I'll just trust Matt Reeves. If he wants to make Penguin the villain, I'm just going to assume he's going to do a great job with Penguin. If he decides to make KG Beast the villain, which I actually really like KG Beast, I'm just going to assume he's going to do a great job with KG Beast. You know? So that's kind of where I'm at with that. All right. He also follows up. As a Batman fan, I've always wanted to see what the movie industry would do with Clayface. I find him an interesting character and would like to see what they could do with CGI. What are your thoughts? Thanks for all you do and have a great day. I get the feeling like Matt Reeves is going for more grounded stuff. So I don't think you're going to see a lot of superpowers in Matt Reeves's Batman. I think he's going to go more the Christopher Nolan route. That's my guess. My guess is he's going to go more the Christopher Nolan route, where they keep it a little bit more grounded to go for that grittiness. So I'm not expecting any magical superpowers. So I don't think we'll get Poison Ivy. I don't think we'll get Clayface. I don't think we'll get Man-Bat. But you never know. But again, my impression right now is that Matt Reeves is going more the Nolan route, and they're going to keep the supernatural stuff out of it. But you never know. You never know. All I am going to say, though, is I love Clayface and Harley Quinn. I know that's not the real Clayface, but I do love the Clayface and Harley Quinn. Thanks for writing that in, Casey. All right, next up, Dan Ketchum writes, Smith and Hart are great, but I doubt a remake can have the magic and chemistry of the Martin and Candy original. Candy especially played his character with so much genuineness. Well, I mean, look, let's be clear here. I love John Candy. Great Canadian kid. Will Smith is a better actor than John Candy. I mean, he just is. Will Smith is a better actor than John Candy was. And I love John Candy. But I got to say, I don't get on board with this mentality of when we hear a new version of a story's coming, the saying is, I don't think it can be as good as the original. Well, says who? Right? This version could blow that version out of the water. There's no reason to assume that it can't. There's no reason to assume that it will, but there's also no reason to assume that it can't. And even if it's not, who cares? I don't go personally into a remake expecting them to be better than the last one was. I just go into it the way I go into any movie. I just hope it's a good movie. That's all that I ask for. And can this be better than the original Planes, Trains, and Automobiles? You bet your ass it could be better. It very much could be better. But the key for me is that doesn't need to be better. Just be good. Just be a good movie. You know? Like, for instance, Infernal Affairs, right? My all-time favorite cop movie. Was The Departed, Martin Scorsese's remake of Infernal Affairs, was The Departed as good as Infernal Affairs? I say no. But it's still awesome. And it won Best Picture at the Academy Awards. And it won Martin Scorsese his first Best Director Oscar. It's still not as good as the original, though, in my opinion. And that's okay. It's perfectly fine. You don't have to be as good as the original. Just be a good movie. That's all. If you can take that premise and make another good movie that we can love and appreciate and enjoy, whether it's better than, as good as, or almost as good as the last one, then I think it's a win for everybody. I think it's a win for everybody at that point. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I honestly believe they could make this better. But it doesn't have to be. So anyway, that's just where I am, Dan. All right. Movies are awesome, writes. Sorry for confusion. It's Train to Busan Peninsula. Okay, so you were talking about the sequel. And a special edition of Inception with extras from Tenet, Wonder Woman 84, Message from Nolan, and both IMAX. I remember we talked about that on the show. Grateful to AMC in Mesquite, Texas for fun. Disappointed to not see Mulan. Maybe I could fly to China to see it in theaters. Yeah, I thought that I heard them say they might do that in China. That they might actually do a Mulan live screen. I forgot all about that, but that is great. You're going to get to go see Inception and Train to Busan Peninsula, which is, of course, the sequel to Train to Busan. Very excited for that film. I still don't know when I'm going to get a chance to see it, so I'm very excited. So I'm a little bit jealous of you there. All right, next up. Evil John Campea writes, Hey John, Earth 2's Marvel fandom event, not unlike your DC fandom event, just announced Spider-Man 2099 movie. What Spider-Man version would you pick to do a movie if the characters from the Spider-Verse was untouchable? Spider-Punk, anybody? I'm honestly not all that much into a lot of the variations of Spider-Man. Even though they worked very well as side characters in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, very well. To me, Spider-Man is Peter Parker, period, end of sentence. Now, I love Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse, and I like the Miles Morales in that way more than I thought I would. And I'm very excited for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 2 to see more adventures of Miles Morales. But Spider-Man is Peter Parker. That said, if I had to pick another iteration of Spider-Man to see a movie on, although I know the Clone Saga is very unpopular with a lot of comic book fans, I gotta say, I'd want to see Ben Reilly. I'd be down. Now, for those of you who don't know who Ben Reilly is, Ben Reilly is Peter Parker's clone, who thought he was Peter Parker for a long time, only to find out he was actually Peter Parker's clone. He went on to become the hero Scarlet Spider, a lot of different stuff. But I think following a Ben Reilly, a character who discovered his life was a lie, and he was actually a clone of somebody else, and also happens to be Spider-Man. I think that could be interesting. Again, all other things being equal, I want Peter Parker Spider-Man. Barring that, I think I might go Ben Reilly, even though the unpopularity of the Clone Saga in the Spider-Man comics. All right, an anonymous viewer writes, so are they keeping open businesses where you must touch everything, but keeping closed a business where you simply sit down? My goodness, John, U.S. has handled this COVID situation poorly as well. Which businesses to reopen? Thanks for the content. Yeah, listen, clearly the way the United States of America has dealt with the COVID thing is a masterclass in incompetence. I mean, there's just no way around it. The way the United States has managed the COVID crisis is a masterclass in utter, complete incompetence. And, I don't like to get into political stuff on this show, but this political thing is affecting, including the areas that I do care about, the areas that I talk about in movies and stuff like that. There are a lot worse things that are resulting as a result of the pandemic than how it affects movies. First world problems, my friends. But seeing as that is the theme of this show, it's just become more and more aware every day how utterly incompetently this country, in particular the government of this country, has dealt with the COVID crisis. Everything from pretending it didn't exist, to telling everybody back in March that it would be gone by April, to tell everybody it was a hoax, to pretend that it's just going to disappear. I mean, it is insane. And I'm not talking about how the government of this country handles everything else. I'm just talking about this one area. And in this one area, the government of this country, I think a room full of infant baboons could have managed the COVID crisis in this country better, especially when you look at almost, not everyone, but almost every other country. Almost. There are a few that haven't, but almost every other country has done such a better job at managing this thing than the United States has. Is unfortunate, and it is what it is. All right, next up. Jesse writes, Ryan Reynolds is also part owner of Mint Mobile as well. Yes, he is. Hence his new streaming service, Mint Mobile Online, the streaming service with just one movie on it, which of course we talked about the other day. He's done a great job diversifying himself. Jesse also writes, one of two. To play a bit of the devil's advocate, I'm not entirely sure just how big an announcement of Cavill returning to play Superman is to the general audience. Sure, us fans who follow the news are dying for confirmation he'll be back, but a casual viewer may think that's your big announcement. The guy who plays Superman is returning to play Superman. That's when I think a solo film will be announced as well. I don't know about that. I think it became pretty well known Like because I remember it was on the front page of CNN. It was on the front page of like a number of like major news outlets that Henry Cavill reportedly no longer playing Superman. That was big news. That was big news when that came out and was talked about and discussed. So yeah, I think for people who are fans of DC and fans of the comic book movies, which includes a lot of average film fans who don't read comics, I gotta say, I do think Henry Cavill returning to play Superman again would be sufficiently big enough, would have been sufficiently big enough to do that. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Now watch. It's going to come and they're going to say their big announcement, DC Universe is converting to an all comics thing for $4 a month. And we're all going to go, oh, really? That was, I mean, it could very well be that. That could totally be it. Make no mistake about it. That could be it. It could be something way small, something way big. I'm still putting my 20 cents on it being a Henry Cavill announcement. Again, let me be very clear. I am not claiming to have insider information about that. Not at all. I'm not claiming that I have had sources from Warner Brothers tell me it's going to be this. Not at all. I don't know what they are or aren't going to announce at DC Fandom. I am speculating. But I'm still speculating and putting my 20 cents at a Henry Cavill announcement that he is returning as Superman, whether that is for Black Adam, Flash, something else, or a standalone Superman movie. It's going to be one of those, I think. But we'll have to wait and see. It could very well be completely nothing related at all, but we will find out soon enough. All right, guys, that will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here, guys, and making today's show a part of your day. Listen, special thank you to Robert Meyer Burnett for gracing us with his presence. Thank you to all of you for making this a part of your day, and a special thank you to all you guys who submitted the questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about, but number two, you supported this channel while you did it, and all of us here, thank you very much for that, guys. All right. That will do it for now, guys. Thanks a lot for joining us. My name is John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.